You're listening to the Autism Weekly podcast. Each week, we share community voices and bring light to stories that increase awareness, acceptance, equity, access, and inclusion. If you haven't already, subscribe to join the Autism Weekly family. I'm your host, Jeff Skibitsky. This week, we're joined by Jessica Moore, Executive Director of Autism Tennessee. Jessica shares her inspiring journey from interior design to becoming a gentle sleep coach and now leading Autism Tennessee and supporting families and advocating for autism awareness. We'll also discuss how Autism Tennessee amplifies the voices of the local autistic community and the impact of their Drive to Thrive collaboration with Vanderbilt and San Diego State University. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica Moore.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And your journey probably has a pretty long story behind it because you've gone from a very specific career in your past all the way to a brand new kind of venture. And there's got to be a reason that you got to where you are and the passion behind it and why that's now your focus. But maybe you can give us a little bit of a background of what led you to autism advocacy and trying to be more of pushing a leadership agenda to be able to challenge some of the thoughts and some of the policies that are existing right now.
Well, to make a very long story as short as possible, it's personal to me. That's what it boils down to. It's personal to me. It's personal to my family, and it's what led me to even know about and become involved with Autism Tennessee to begin with. To dive a little bit deeper into that, I came from Ohio State University. I have interior design background. I was working for a number of years doing just a lot of different types of interior design work. I really enjoyed that work. I got to work with a lot of people, a lot of personalities. It kept me involved with the community, just in a really different way than the way I do it now. Interior design it's people driven. It's a dynamic profession where the ultimate goal is to make spaces enjoyable for people. Not enjoyable for me, but enjoyable for them. Listening to their voice, their wants, their needs, what they're trying to get out of a certain situation or a certain room in this case, and how they get from where they are now to where they want to be. And so I don't think that's too much different than advocacy work. You have to, sit back and listen, but the overall process is the same. So, like I said, it was personal to me. And, when people in my life started becoming diagnosed on the spectrum, even before then, really, it just became an interest of mine. I started reading about autism more, learning about autism more. And then, a couple of diagnoses pop up in my life. And that was, fuel to the fire, so to speak. And just continuing to learn about more, getting involved with the organization, learning about what the organization stands for at the time, and how people can be involved and learn more about themselves and what they care about was ultimately what drove me to then becoming employed, honestly, with Autism Tennessee. So long winding path.
Well, there's so many intersections. Is that most careers, most thought processes require us to be flexible in our thought and look at how it affects so many different populations. And I would imagine what you are working with interior design, and like you said that it's about making it an environment enjoyable, is that your advocacy work couldn't be too far from that, is that you're allowing the community now to adapt and be empowering for all individuals, and especially those who are autistic, to be able to thrive in whatever they're hoping to be able to accomplish, and creating that overall design of how the community can help support that, which I think is awesome. But prior to getting into your current role, you also had a interesting kind of career path where you were a gentle sleep coach. Was that also personal to you?
It was. So, I went through my career as a interior designer, and when our first son was born, there was an opportunity for me to just kind of chill out for a little bit, stay home with him, and be a mom. And if you've ever been a parent, you kind of know it's an exhausting experience. Rewarding, yes, also exhausting. And when my son was having some sleep issues, I don't know, around 12 months old, I discovered a program through Kim West called I even forget what the book is called now, but the Sleep Lady Shuffle. And I read the book. I was like, I'm going to try this, see if it helps, see what happens. What's the worst that can happen, right? So I found the program to be very in line with our parenting, empowering the child, even at that age, to learn and make mistakes, but also not leaving them in a situation that's potentially traumatic or harmful. So it just aligned with us. And so I went through the process, lo and behold, he learns how to sleep on his own. He's fallen asleep on his own. Everything's developmentally appropriate. And it really worked. So, at one point after I had gone through that process, I learned that she was offering a certification program, was expanding because she couldn't handle the amount of clients that she was getting at that point, and we really needed to create a team of people that could help that would know the process, know her mission, and uphold her standards. So like, why not? I already believe in this process. I think everyone can benefit from this. Everyone can benefit from good sleep. So I went through it and became a gentle sleep coach where I worked with parents and helped them learn the importance of sleep, the science behind sleep, and why it's just good for everyone to develop these healthy sleep habits, understanding that, it's a learned skill, just like, shooting a basket into a hoop. It's not something you necessarily learn how to do independently. You practice it, you learn it, somebody teaches you, and you incorporate it into your routine. So yeah, I worked with that for a number of years and helped quite a few people develop those habits. I worked specifically with parents, and I really enjoyed that. It kept me involved. It kept me involved with the community and being able to just connect with people, and with a good cause and a good mission behind it. So I really enjoyed it. And I did that up until the point where I was contacted by the then executive director of AutismTN saying, hey, we've got an opening, and would you be interested in applying? So that's when my path shifted again.
Well, I mean, just your journey, I think, is one that if we empower a lot of families, we empower a lot of individuals, and even self-advocates, is that this is one that can be replicated, is that you have somebody who's got a passion, you have somebody with some very unique skill sets and an ability to bring others around them, is that I think that that's where a growth occurs for any sort of advocacy work. But maybe you can give us a little bit of a background of what it is, and maybe it's the mission, maybe it's the values, but what it is that Autism Tennessee is doing specifically to amplify those voices of self-advocates, of parents like yourself that, have so much to be able to offer the community, and how do we get everybody working together?
So the voices of self-advocates, I think, are the most important voices that we can listen to, because they are what drives us. We have a world that it was unfortunately built not for, the neurodivergent brain. And so what we can do to come together as a community is listen to their experiences, learn from their experiences, and then make change. And that's ultimately what Autism Tennessee is trying to do, is create opportunities where autistic people feel comfortable and welcomed to share their voice, share their experiences, so that the rest of us can learn from that. I'm not saying that we ignore the voices of the support people around them, because those are still important voices to hear. I'm one of those people that is a support person to an autistic individuals, multiples. So bringing those two sides of the perspective together, or bring those two perspectives together, will only empower the community as a whole. And so giving those opportunities to self-advocates through our volunteer programs, our board of directors, our committee, advisory committee, and through panel discussions, inviting people to share their experiences, is really one of our objectives in the programming that we offer is to just allow those voices to come through and us be able to get that out to the world and let people learn and experience what they have to say.
And that dynamic was not always the way we went about advocating historically, is that, if I'm correct, is that we used to tell people what they need versus trying to encourage that dialogue and learning from somebody's experience to help support the resourcing of what they're telling us that would make their lives better. How does Autism Tennessee do this? Because it's not an easy task. You're going to have so many voices that are asking for different things, and you're there to listen, but how do you start to, I mean, what's the structure of being able to help support so many different voices through the process and to make sure that their needs are the priority of every discussion?
It's not easy. I'm just going to put it out there. It's like walking a tightrope, for that analogy. It's not far off from that, I feel sometimes. There's a lot of gray area. But to give an example, we have an upcoming panel discussion coming up about it's called an introduction to autistic culture. If you look back in the history, from the 70s on, there has been, amongst the disability community, the need for person-first language. And so people want to be referred to as a person, not necessarily always seen as their disability, which I completely get, and it makes perfect sense. However, there is a shift amongst autistic people to say, but I am autistic. It's part of my identity, and therefore I am okay with identity first language. Maybe not all the time and in all settings, but there's a case where they want to be known as an autistic person because it's so much a part of who they are, and it's a part of every decision they make, every plan that they have, every goal that they set for themselves. It's always a factor. And so there's this weighing of perspectives. And I don't know that we'll ever come to like a middle ground. I don't know that there needs to be a middle ground. I just think there needs to be respect amongst people who choose one path or the other. And so it's just one example of how we as an organization want to encourage that respect piece. Because I did get, an email recently about that panel discussion saying, hey, I don't identify, or my person doesn't identify as autistic, and I feel like you're putting everyone in this bubble. That wasn't our intent. But the people who are leading that panel discussion do prefer first person identity first language. Mm-hmm. So it was an opportunity to have a discussion about the differences in language and just the preferences of the community, and how, if we're just mindful and respectful of one another, that we can still move forward and still learn from one another.
Like even that topic alone, just being able to understand how somebody identifies, and if that is the primary way they want to be viewed, or if that's a quality or a characteristic that contributes to their overall identity. Mm-hmm. That is so nuanced. It's so hard. It's so challenging. How do you make sure that these conversations, these panels that probably bring in a lot of self-advocates, probably bring in a lot of people that are involved directly in lives of autistic individuals, how do you make sure that that's mainstream and that it's being talked about by those that maybe aren't as directly engaged with the autistic community? Maybe different restaurant owners or different people in the community that, they're living their life. Their first thought is not autism all the time. And this isn't a conversation they're typically having. How do you broaden it to make sure that this is a discussion that we're all having? Because I think it would be beneficial for everybody to start thinking this way and processing, how does my opinion affect so many other people?
Well, I think that's one of the goals of this upcoming panel discussion, which I know may not be, when this podcast goes live, will probably be in the past. We do plan on recording it and making it available so people will be able to circle back to this conversation that will be had on Thursday. And that's part of the objective of this panel discussion, is helping people who may not be ingrained in this community like we are, learn more about the preferences, the opinions, the lived experiences of the panelists. Now, the panelists don't speak for the entire community. They're speaking for themselves. And so understanding that perspective as well, making sure that, they're not, they're literally just speaking on behalf of themselves and what their experiences have been. And just, again, learning from that and keeping in mind that this is just one person's experience and perspective, and just being open-minded, just being open to just sitting back and listening instead of always listening to react, I think is another big part of it.
And I mean, just even that alone, it starts to broaden discussion. It creates more thought, more empathy, and it creates an environment where we're listeners first, which I think is so important. But that also comes with the more you listen, the more you understand, you start tackling issues a little bit differently. And one of those issues is, what can we do as a society to be able to increase access to the community for autistic individuals? What was the real barrier? What are some of those things that we can add to the research or the innovation around the way that we're adapting? And I'm guessing that's where Thrive to Drive started, is as a reaction to, hey, you know what, we have a variety of autistic individuals that are saying one of the biggest barriers for them to be able to access the community in the way that they want to is being able to get there. Is that it's just the bus right now, or it's just using cars, or it's just having somebody drive me. Nobody has really tackled the availability of driving on the level that Thrive to Drive is. So give me a little bit of a background of the Thrive to Drive program, how it started, and what it could do as far as its impact on a community.
Sure. So the research was started in a couple different ways. We've got Vanderbilt University, who has been developing out this driving simulator for a number of years, and we've got San Diego State University that has been developing out a teaching curriculum for a number of years. And the long story short, they decided to come together and create a program that gives people the opportunity to learn to drive in a way that's not as intense as literally getting behind a car. So the research that they did showed that only 30% of the autistic people that are of driving age have driver's license. And so they did a lot of questioning why, and kind of came up with just a whole list of reasons why people don't pursue their driver's license. They also found that the autistic people who do have driver's license tend to get them much later in life. And it takes them longer. So majority of them takes them longer to actually feel comfortable enough actually getting that driver's license. Even after they receive their driver's license, there's still a discrepancy, on do they still, even though they have the license, do they feel comfortable driving? And that everyday occurrence. We're in Nashville, Middle Tennessee. There's not a great public transportation system. Let's just be honest. There's not a lot of opportunities for people to safely get from one place to the other. So then it impacts their ability to get out into the community, to socialize, to work, and all of the things without relying on someone else to be their driver. So, when I was helpline advocate, I would get calls, several times a month asking for, what driving programs exist in our area that I or, my child can access that are going to be, neuroaffirming. There's not a lot. There are a couple that do have trainers that are more knowledgeable about neurodivergence and autism, but there's not much. And so I think that's one of the barriers that we kept seeing. So when the team at Vanderbilt came to us and announced that they were ready to move forward in this project, we were, yes, please, we would love to. So we are going to be starting our version of the program, which I know a couple different sites are doing as well. But we named it Drive to Thrive because that's our goal. Learn to drive and learn to, and eventually hopefully that leads to you thriving and your independence. So we're starting November 9th with our first cohort of students. So, with the goal of getting through or allowing those 10 participants to work through the curriculum, have time on the driving simulator, really practice the act of driving in that really safe, environment that creates a lot of certainty. There's no real life consequences if something goes wrong on a simulator, of course. So just giving them that opportunity to practice those skills, learn those skills, develop their confidence, so that hopefully the goal then being that they feel comfortable going on to get their permit and then their driver's license.
No, and I mean, it opens up brand new worlds. The
Absolutely.
ability to be able to utilize transportation at your leisure and understand that I have the flexibility to go when I want to be able to go where I want. I mean, it's so important. What is it that's unique? And so I'm trying to remember back. I had the chance to utilize the original pilot as they were coming up with the software for this. And if I'm correct, it kind of moves with the participant to make sure that, if it's going too fast, it slows down for them to be able to process a little bit different. It brings in different parts of the road to simulate more traffic, less traffic, highway driving, so that they get the taste of everything. What's the feedback that you all have heard from different participants who have gone through the program on, is it giving them that confidence that they were hoping to be able to have? Is it giving them the skill set to be able to translate that to real life driving?
So what I heard from one of the researchers at San Diego State when we met last night was that of the first round of folks that have gone through this training program that brings together both of these avenues of learning, is that 80%, that's pretty good. 80% felt more comfortable after the program ended, and they felt like they would be getting their driver's license soon. It's not even been a year. So, there's still some data collection needs to happen and some kind of tracking and just following up with these individuals kind of as they progress. But yeah, 80% is a pretty good average number to say it improved their confidence and their ability to hopefully get the driver's license. So
I mean, that's huge. I mean, 80% of people feeling that level of confidence where initially they probably might not have even taken the first step towards it, or at least delayed it drastically. That's a big enhancement for a lot of people's quality of life. As you've enrolled people into the program, and it sounds like you've brought on 10 to be able to kind of work within the program right now, but I would imagine you got even more folks calling and asking about it. What's the vibe? I mean, how excited are families and individuals who identify autistic? How excited are they about this possibility that maybe didn't exist before?
They seems to be very excited. We had 17 people fill out the interest form because we knew that there was going to be more interest than what we had the ability to serve at this point. We want to make sure that we keep the class sizes small so that we're able to really individualize the amount of time we're spending with each person. And just give them the attention that they need. So we knew we needed to keep it, at a cap of 10. We knew we were going to get more than that. In fact, when we closed the interest form period, we ended up having several people come to us and say, "Oh no, I didn't see this. It didn't show up in my feed, or it didn't show up in my email until after the window had closed." So we know that the demand is there, that people are wanting a program like this. And so the intention, as long as everything goes smoothly and the program remains successful, is that we will continue offering this, into 2025 and be able to have these small cohorts throughout the year. So that's the intention, that's the goal, and hopefully we get there. But we'll know once this first cohort is done.
Well, I mean, and Drive to Thrive is just one example of a way that Autism Tennessee has taken the community voices, has taken the initiatives that have been put out there through conversation with community members, to be able to provide services, provide additional supports. What are some of the other ways that Autism Tennessee is directly helping to support the community that they're organized around? What are some of the other big initiatives going on right now?
So our longest running program since the creation of Autism Tennessee way back in the 90s is our helpline. That is kind of the front door, the first way most people get in and become associated with the organization. That's through helpline. So, and that's the way I did as well. I was a helpline advocate for a couple of years. The first couple of years I was with the organization, and that's the opportunity for anyone in the community to call, text, email, and talk with someone, or communicate through email or text about the resource needs of you or your person. You can ask questions. We can send you information. We can send you, website links of great research studies or whatever, whatever answers your questions, or kind of what are you looking to learn about. So the idea behind Helpline is that you can call with your question or your resource need, and we will give you kind of that tailored response. It's not you looking through an endless list on Google. It's you've got a specific need of occupational therapy in Sumner County, and you've got this type of healthcare insurance. Okay, great. We're going to narrow that down to the 5 providers in that area that will meet that criteria, so that you're not having to go through, this endless list and make phone calls all day long. It's, and through Helpline, that's everything from service providers, evaluation providers, all the way to recreational sports, sensory-friendly haircut places. I mean, there's over 1,000 different types of resources in our Helpline database, and we keep that updated as we get the information that comes in. So that's kind of the initial way that people can connect with us. Outside of that, well, let me back up for a second. So a lot of those questions that we get on Helpline help impact the programs that we offer throughout the rest of the year. We track who's calling us, why they're calling us. And what we have found is that from 2018 to today, the amount of adults calling us looking for either evaluation resources for themselves or resources, generally speaking, for themselves has increased. They now make up almost 30% of our call base. And so that shows us that more adults are becoming more educated, more knowledgeable about themselves, and wanting to seek out that information, those resources. So what does that do? That increases our need for adult programs. And so we have our adult program director who runs a number of programs. We offer adult social networking opportunities in a number of different ways for autistic adults. We have various programs that they can participate in. Our Employ Me is a program that was originally funded by the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, now being funded by the Stillwell Grant. And it gives our job seekers, autistic people of job seeking age, an opportunity to learn about the employment landscape. They learn about how to really detect what their skills are, their interests, kind of that self-inventory, and then going through and really understanding how to apply for a job, how to look for a job, how to tailor your resume. So there's a lot of information about that employment piece that our Employ Me program covers. All the way to, I don't want to leave out the families. We do have our family social networking opportunities as well. We've got a huge group in Clarksville. We've got Wilson County, we've got a group there, one in Putnam and Overton County. We have, and then 2 kind of specialty groups, one for dads and father figures, which, let's be honest, tend to get left out of this scenario sometimes. So we want to make sure we give them an opportunity to connect with one another and just have that sense of community for themselves. And then also Latino families that also could get left out of this conversation. And so we have that group as well that meets monthly. That's just a kind of a taste of kind of what we do. We do a lot more than that. We have social networking groups for families, or opportunities for families, and just the ability to kind of come together, have fun interactions that are as stress-free as we can make them. So we do a lot of just community outings and different things of that nature as well.
I don't know that that's just a taste. Sounds like a buffet. I mean, it sounds like there's so much going on, but that takes a lot of input. It takes a lot of people getting involved. I mean, similar to your experience with Helpline, is that resources only come about because you have a lot of people contributing to building up this wonderful resource list, or the list of ideas and ways to be able to present it. How do people get involved? I mean, it's whether it's different communities. You said that the Latino community is one that there's some outreach into those communities because they're underserved right now. How do you make sure that you're getting those support voices and that you're able to bring them into Autism Tennessee to hear more? Or if it's rural communities that might have some of those same challenges, how does an individual say, hey, I want to be a part of these discussions? Who do I reach out to?
So we have an amazing volunteer coordinator that people can, if that's your goal, is to help either facilitate a program, get involved with the programs that we offer. You can connect with our volunteer team, and they will, help get you onboarded. We do have kind of a strict, process. I mean, not everyone can be a volunteer for Autism Tennessee. We do make sure that you are a good fit before you come on, because we want to make sure that we are supporting ultimately what can be a vulnerable population. So we want to make sure we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the people that we bring in to help support the programs are going to be there for the right reasons. So we do have, that volunteer process, but you can apply to become a volunteer. You can apply to become a board member. We definitely encourage people, especially, anyone who wants to contribute to the community, but also those autistic voices. We do encourage board membership. And there's, aside from that, if you're looking to become involved in the programs themselves because you want to take advantage of the opportunities, you just go to our website. On our website calendar, we have everything that we're doing there in links to register for all the various different types of programs. So you can register for the family networking groups and the social networking groups for autistic adults. You can also register for, the member benefits that we have coming up if you're a member of Autism Tennessee. So there's lots of opportunities, either through calling Helpline and asking, how can I get involved? Going to the website and just kind of clicking around, really exploring, the navigation. We will be having a new website coming out next spring, which I'm very excited about. But for now, you can get in there and you can click around and go to the calendar and see what we've got going on and get involved that way.
And I mean, it sounds like you all have so many wonderful programs, and it's been built over time, and it's been built through the hard work of so many individuals all coming together, which I think is a great way to grow a grassroots organization. But you all are also involved in being able to make sure that you're advocating for the needs of the families and of the individuals that are out there living within the community. You mentioned that there are some programs now finally at tackling some of the adult service issues. Are there other goals that we should be expecting on the horizon right now that Autism Tennessee might be taking on, just to be able to kind of amplify, whether it's access to care or information or whatever might be a pressing need right now?
We are a small team. We're a staff of 7. So, there are some capacity issues that we have big dreams as a team, but we have to be able to make sure that the programs that we offer and the initiatives that we begin are sustainable. So that's part of, always in the back of our minds, is this something we can do and do well? Aside from that, taking those voices that we hear, those helpline calls, those conversations that we have in our groups, and stripping out the personalized information, but taking that information and taking it to all of the committees and councils that we sit on, from an advocacy perspective, going to the Governor's Council on Autism and letting them know, hey, these are the kind of questions that we're getting, or here's the type of resource needs that we're hearing about, that are just lacking in this area. So communicating that to the different committees and councils that actually have the power to make some of these changes is important as well. So keeping those lines of communication open, from kind of that grassroots effort up and communicating that out as best we can is something that we continue to be mindful of and, active in making sure that when people don't have direct access to the decision makers, that we're communicating that on their behalf. So just being intentional about that side of things as well.
Well, I definitely appreciate having that consolidated voice, that ability to be able to get in front of decision makers and to be able to kind of help share the experiences that so many people are going through or feeling, and some of the barriers that still exist, because that's the only way to start breaking them down. So where can people get resources? On the Drive to Thrive program, but then also, where can they go to start utilizing, if they're not already, some of the other wonderful programs that are offered by Autism Tennessee?
The easiest way to just kind of dip your toes in and kind of see what we're doing and what we've got going on is to visit our website or follow us on social media. We do a lot of, we post all of our events through Facebook. Instagram's a little bit harder. So, that's the beast that we're still learning and navigating, but Facebook's the easiest way. So if you're on Facebook at all, check out our events tab and go there. But all of that information is also available on the website. So if you're not on Facebook, you're not on social media, just go to our website, autismtn.org, and just start clicking around. Go to the programs tab. There's a lot of information there for our family groups, our self-advocate programs, Employ Me, Drive to Thrive, it's all there. And of course, if you see something that catches your eye and you're not quite sure if it's a good fit for you, then, contact us, call the helpline, ask questions. We'll get you in contact with, the program facilitator, and you can ask your questions there. I mean, we've got a couple of groups, one in particular that's the only way that you can become a member of our Spectrum Connection group, because we are very protective of the folks in that group, because it is our LGBTQIA social networking group for autistic adults. And so there is a vetting process to become a member of that group and be able to have access to the other members of the group, just so that we can make sure we're doing our due diligence to protect our participants. So just get on our website, click around, see what interests you, let us know what questions you have, and we kind of go from there.
Well, I mean, the work that you and your team, I didn't realize it was just 7 of you all, with all the volunteer support. You all have put together such a wonderful resource for the community. I hope that this is something that other states and other communities and other cities are replicating, because it is so invaluable to have all those resources accessible to every single family and every single person that's going through it. It's hard to navigate this world without having some library of resources available at some point. So thank you so much. And thanks for coming on to our podcast today, just to be able to share that experience and to give us some of those resources.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just talk a little bit about, my background and how much Autism Tennessee has meant to me and, in my family, and the work that we're doing in the community. We couldn't do it without the help of our community partners like ABS Kids and through our volunteer system. So we definitely are the epitome of a community-based organization. We know that we couldn't do the work that we do without your support. So thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk a little bit about the work that we do.
Likewise, we appreciate it as well. Well, thanks again, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Autism Weekly. We hope you tune back in next week to learn more about autism in the real world. Autism Weekly is now found on all the major listening apps, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. Subscribe to be notified when we post a new podcast. Autism Weekly is produced by ABS Kids. ABS Kids is proud to provide diagnostic assessments and ABA therapy to children with developmental delays like autism spectrum disorder. You can learn more about ABS Kids and the Autism Weekly podcast by visiting abskids.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you again next week.